The Allen Lund Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
It's been a busy week for news in the trucking industry, with a provision to quash speed limiters and a spending bill that hits on a number of other trucking issues as well, along with a report on underride guards that is just a mess. I'll discuss those topics in our latest news roundtable with Jamie Jones and Mark Schremer of Landline Magazine. Who doesn't like shiny things? Now, hearing that, you might think I'm going to talk about something like jewelry. But in fact, truckers have a liking for shiny things, especially those that involve chrome. But that raises a question. Where are the best places to put some chrome on your truck? We'll find out from an expert on that count, Bryan Martin, the boss man at the Chrome Shop Mafia. And finally, late last month, we told you about a Supreme Court decision that strips federal agencies of some of their power. It's raised a lot of questions with regard to trucking regulations. Does this mean that things like electronic logging device mandates could be repealed? What about FMCSA's aspirations for a speed limiter mandate or EPA's emission standards? Paul Torlina, OOIDA's Advocacy Counsel, rejoins the show to add some perspective about the Chevron doctrine, what we now can call the Looper-Bright decision. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Mark. The House Appropriations Committee has advanced a bill this week. We told you about some of the changes yesterday, but a few more to highlight include amendments that were adopted to prohibit tolling on Pennsylvania federal highways and bridges. Another amendment was to prohibit the Department of Transportation from implementing automated traffic enforcement, including red light, speed, and stop sign enforcement. The House wants to move the bills before the August recess goes into session. An OOIDA member just hit his 4 million mile mark in a 1995 Kenworth T600, a truck he's been driving since 1995. Alan Kitzhaber is a senior member from Wisconsin. He recently spoke to Landline about how he's kept his truck on the road all these years.
Well, maintenance program that you set up for yourself is probably the most important thing that you can do to keep that truck going. I get my truck in on a regular basis. It's once a month or roughly every 12,500 miles or once a month to have it greased, checked over. In fact, it's probably in the shop more often than that for one little thing or another. And I have a mindset that if something's broke or something needs to be repaired, you just simply repair it. You don't put it off. If you put things off, and I see truck drivers do this over and over again, even if it's a truck that's 2 or 3 years old, if they start putting stuff off, before you know it, you got all kinds of stuff that needs to be taken care of, and you got this rather large bill that is waiting for you. And in too many cases, these guys find themselves unemployed because they let it go too far. And the other problem is when you let one component go, it might lead to other component failures. So it's really, really, really important that you really stay on top of your maintenance and develop a program.
Kitzhaber attributes his 4 million miles to the routine maintenance he's put into his truck. Port Houston has extended the container hours due to being closed earlier this week because of Hurricane Beryl. The extended hours include Saturday, July 13th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The in-gate will close at 4 p.m. The truck driver who was charged after a collision in 2019 that killed 7 members of the Jarheads Motorcycle Club has had his license suspended for another 2 years. The Associated Press reports that the jury found Vladimir Zakowski not guilty of manslaughter and negligent homicide counts. After he was arrested, his Massachusetts license was automatically suspended. He sought to reinstate it earlier this year, but a judge for the Department of Safety upheld the suspension and this week issued an order to extend the suspension until June of 2026. The article states that on the day of the crash, Zukoski had taken heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine and was reportedly swerving back and forth before the collision happened. A judge dismissed the 8 impairment charges, and his attorney said the lead biker was drunk and not looking where he was going when he lost control of his motorcycle and slid in front of the truck. Zukoski was a permanent resident of the U.S. He came here from Ukraine. Last year, a judge ordered his deportation, but the U.S. has hit the pause button on those due to the war with Russia and authorized temporary protected status for qualified Ukrainians. An oversized load in Connecticut was found to be 100,000 pounds overweight. Connecticut State Police report that this week, troopers stopped a commercial vehicle after it was seen bypassing the Danbury scale along I-84 and traveling the secondary roads. Numerous oversized load permit violations were found. After an investigation, the Connecticut Department of Transportation found that the carrier out of New York didn't have an oversized permit for the state, and the truck was 103,000 pounds over the allowed weight without a permit. Other violations included that 6 out of the 8 axles were not in compliance with the maximum allowed statute weight of 18,000 pounds per axle. Size violations were also found over height, over length, and over width without a permit. The carrier was fined more than $39,000, and the CMV was taken out of service. Foggy glasses are allegedly to blame for a truck that crashed through a Wendy's restaurant in Pennsylvania early this morning. WGAL reports that the crash happened at the Wendy's on South Eisenhower Boulevard off Route 283 in High Spire Borough at 2:43 a.m. The fast food restaurant was closed at the time. Police said the driver told them that his glasses fogged up and he could not see. The driver suffered facial injuries and was taken to Hershey's Medical Center. The crash is under investigation. The Texas Department of Transportation is asking for public input on its 10-year, $104 billion transportation plan. According to a release, the draft of the 2025 Unified Transportation Program, or UTP, is a roadmap to help develop projects around Texas to improve safety, address congestion and connectivity, and preserve roadways for drivers. The public comment period began on July 5th and will go until August 5th. For more information on the plan and to comment, you can visit our website at landline.media to find a link. In an effort to lower the number of rural roadway deaths, the state of Kansas is launching Rural Road Safety Awareness Week. The Kansas Department of Transportation reports that 242 people were killed in rural road crashes across the state last year. That accounts for 63% of crash deaths statewide. Governor Laura Kelly says she wants to bring attention to the matter and therefore is launching the Awareness Week, which will go from July 15th through the 19th. The campaign is part of a nationwide campaign spearheaded by the National Center for Rural Road Safety. The state will put emphasis on the importance of following the rules of the road to reduce risks for all drivers, occupants, and surrounding motorists. And finally, reptile experts had to be called this week after a 4-foot lizard was spotted running loose on the Phoenix Freeway. UPI reports that the Arizona Department of Public Safety started receiving calls about the large lizard on Wednesday morning. Troopers arrived on scene and watched the lizard as it fled into a storm drain. Once reptile experts arrived, they were able to successfully retrieve the lizard. It was later returned with its owner, who said he'd escaped from his enclosure during a storm about 2 weeks ago. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. OOIDA is seeking the names and addresses of military personnel serving overseas so we can send them care packages through Truckers for Troops. You can call that information in to Nikki Johnson at our main number, 816-229-5791, or email it to troops@ooida.com. Next, I'll discuss speed limiters, underride guards, and more in a news roundtable discussion with Jamie Jones and Mark Schremer. Bryan Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia tells us the best places to put some chrome on your truck, and Scott Thompson gets some more insight into a Supreme Court decision from OOIDA's Paul Torlina. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
ULSD is hurting your engine. Fight back with Howe's Diesel Defender. Get the most powerful cleaning and maximum lubricity to protect and extend the life of your entire system. At a guaranteed increase in fuel economy, and you can't go wrong with Howe's.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline now. Welcome back. It's time for another look at the important news of the week in a Landline Media Roundtable. I'm Mark Reddick, filling in for Scott Thompson, and I'm joined by Landline Magazine Managing Editor Jamie Jones and the magazine's Senior Editor Mark Schremer. Hey, thanks to both of you for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome, Mark.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Okay, so the big news this week, and it doesn't sound exciting when you say what it is the annual appropriations bills. It gets exciting when you get into what happens in those bills. And a lot of it is just, as you said, Jamie, there aren't a lot of chances to get things passed.
No, there really aren't. And that's typical with any Congress, especially heading into a presidential election. We just see things in D.C. just grind to a halt. I don't know how things can grind anymore to a halt when they're already stopped, but that's where we are right now. And so, we've had some really exciting legislation introduced by different lawmakers. I mean, a lot of stuff that really has the interest of truck drivers, at heart. But a standalone bill in a very efficient Congress that is actually working across the aisle and all of that, that is still a big hill to climb. And so, the way things tend to happen, we have had standalone bills passed. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's definitely tougher. So what you have happen is they'll take all of these different pieces of legislation and roll them into a bigger bill. We see it with the highway trust or the highway bill, every 5-7 years, whenever we're due another one. That's one way that we see that happen. But the one thing, everybody talks about there's two things you can count on, death and taxes. Well, there's one more. They're leaving out a third. It's the appropriations bill is eventually going to get passed. It's the one thing that you can count on Congress to do. They won't do it on time. There will probably be continuing resolutions. It's probably going to be ugly, but they'll get it done. And,
I don't know about that bumper sticker, though. Death, taxes, and appropriation bill.
Yeah.
We'll
Once again, doesn't sound exciting.
It doesn't. But, I mean, it's truthfully what happens. And so, you do, the policy geek in us, especially when the appropriations bill, which my inner 13-year-old boy can't help but laugh every time. It's the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill. The slang for it is THUD, and it's spelled thud.
It's kind of, one of those words that sounds like the sound it's imitating,
Yeah, it really does, and it feels like it's always, it is kind of a dud of a bill. Dud, thud, I don't know. Like I said, my inner 13-year-old boy always laughs. But it's really important because we did just get the 2025 fiscal year THUD appropriations bill, and there's some language that truckers will be very excited about in it.
It used to be these bills were all about spending, and that's where the earmarks happened that everybody talked about. And once they eliminated earmarks, at the same time, you start to get Congress grinding to a halt, and all of a sudden these things were just havens for policy.
Oh.
This is where they got stuff done, like you said. And speed limiters ended up being a big, big part of this.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things, and you talk about those standalone bills, and a lot of truckers have probably paid attention to the DRIVE Act. It's in the House and the Senate, and it would stop FMCSA from moving forward with the speed limiter rulemaking, which, as remember, most truckers are strongly against. We had more than 15,000 comments. The majority of them came from truck drivers saying just that they did not want speed limiters. Lawmakers are listened, like I said, and they put that in the House and Senate standalone bills. That has gotten some support, mainly from Republicans, but as like I said, it's difficult to push those through in those standalone bills. What's great about the appropriations bill, though, what this is doing, there is a provision in there, basically the same thing. It would effectively stop FMCSA from doing it, but it basically cuts off the funding for them to be able to go with the rulemaking any further. And it's another layer. It's another just showing that how difficult it's going to be for FMCSA to even try to go forward with this very controversial rulemaking.
The appropriations bill, it's basically, if you want to make it ultra simplistic, it's the parents handing out the allowance to children. Yeah. And so that's exactly what it's like.
Congress, I want to go to the store and buy candy. Yes. No, you can't. I'm not giving you the money.
Exactly. Yeah. And the one thing so it's an annual bill and you're like, okay, so that's good for a year. Usually what happens when something passes through an appropriations bill, that's the end of it. I mean, once it's through, you don't unring that bell. And so this is a very big move to see this in the 2025 appropriations bill.
I love that analogy because it basically is like saying, is that really the best thing you can be using your money on, FMCSA? Because when you look at it, if, like I said, back in 2022, they put out this supplemental advance notice of proposed rulemaking, basically kicking the tires.
That was a lot of words.
Exactly. But it just kind of, they're kicking the tires in this idea of reviving a rule all the way back from 2016 that they've tried for years and years and years of this idea of putting speed limiting devices on commercial motor vehicles and slowing them down way below the general flow of traffic of passenger vehicles. And truckers, to no surprise, have said it's a bad idea. And what we're doing, they're seeing so many, they've had the 15,000 comments, so that caused a major delay. It was supposed to come out in, I think, June of 2023, then December 2023, then May of 2024. Now they're saying May of 2025. And you look at all of this, you got an election coming up, and that's what ended the whole rulemaking back in 2016. You have the Supreme Court just made the Chevron decision, which now puts less control for federal agencies to do this sort of thing. And if you remember, this is not a directive from Congress.
Exactly.
A lot of these rulemakings, they're doing it because Congress said so.
Generally in a highway bill,
for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they had to do it.
And that's not what happened with speed limiters. They're doing this on their own. Robin Hutcherson was the FMCSA administrator at the time, and she was a big proponent of this. She is no longer at FMCSA. I really feel like the writing's on the wall with all of the opposition. Like I said, a potential administration change coming up. It seems like a good time for them to just let this ease off. I really do.
Oh, yeah. And I really believe that FMCSA is hearing the message loud and clear because we just had the regulatory agenda released for the spring. We get regulatory agendas a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And the agency even punted speed limiters into potentially next year.
Yeah, May of 2025 is what they're saying now. And it's just, like I said, go back to that analogy of what's the best things to use your money on. I mean, if you want to improve safety, do it by improving entry-level driver training standards. Do it by addressing the detention time issue. There's so many different things. Driver pay.
Well, and ultimately, of course, if you really want to do something about safety, do something about the four-wheelers that cause more of these problems than the trucks do.
Oh, you and your logic.
I know.
You and your logic.
I'm silly that way.
Oh, my goodness. Mark.
But yes, 100%. And that's like I said, that this is a good example of what Jamie's saying, why the appropriations bill is important. It is another way for lawmakers to say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, and it puts more attention on the issue, and hopefully FMCSA will hear the message and say, we need to focus on other things.
So just a quick primer on where we go from here on the appropriations bill. It starts in the House. There will be a Senate version. Mm-hmm. They'll both have to pass, and they'll reconcile them between the two chambers of Congress. There will be probably, I would almost bet that there's going to be some opportunity that OOIDA is going to ask members and truckers to weigh in with their lawmakers to show support that this language stays in there. Because just because it's in there now doesn't mean they can't strip it out. So this is not a done deal. So there's still fights to be had, even though it sure feels like the momentum is on the side of truckers right now. But don't let up. Do not let up. Do not speed limit your efforts right now. I mean,
don't throttle them down.
Yeah, no. We have to keep the pressure on, and we will definitely keep them informed here on the show. We'll have it on our website. Anywhere we will send smoke signals, carrier pigeons. We will let you know.
Yeah.
That this fight is not over, and we need you to jump back in.
We could ship it by truck.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I wanted to release a pigeon, though.
I know. We'll get the pigeons. We've got a little bit of time left here, and there is one other topic I know you all wanted to get to, and that I did too, because it's a mess. I wanted to say a word before mess, but it is a huge, huge mess. And that's the Advisory Committee on Underride Protection. Again, doesn't sound exciting until you think about what it might cost you if they actually do require these things. And the mess is we've got two separate reports coming out.
Yeah, the whole, if anybody that's been paying attention to this, basically we talk about like the huge, the highway bills, the last infrastructure bill, one of the provisions in it was to create a task force for groups to come together and figure out a way to, reduce the number of underride fatality crashes. And, that makes sense. They bring in some safety representatives from trucking groups and also, industry stakeholders. And the idea is you should bring all these people together and figure out all the problems and then come together on a unified message of this. These are the list of recommendations that we have that we think can, improve safety. That's what it's supposed to be. This is not what it was.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it did not work out that way. It was not a utopia in any shape or form. Instead, we had, a group of safety advocates that have been working on this issue that want to mandate side underride guards, and they've been wanting to do it for 20, 30 years. And this has been in some of their cases, their life's mission, basically, to do this. And regardless of cost-benefit analysis that shows that there are issues, regardless of truck drivers saying, hey, the concerns about railroad crossings and all of these different unintentional consequences that happens if you run into the guard and it bounces you off into traffic and creates a larger, crash. None of those were taken into account. And so what ended up happening, instead of this unified message, was this fractured into kind of like a Supreme Court decision where there was a majority report, the order, and then there was a dissenting report. And it's 410 pages. If you got any light reading, I strongly recommend it at any time.
I assigned it to Schrimmer.
I'm just thinking, why don't you just read Webster's dictionary? I mean,
so, but yeah, it's 410 pages, and and basically what ends up coming out of it, I'm sure that the agency, it's going to be like the parent, the kids are arguing in the back seat, and they just want them to be quiet rather than hearing any of it at the end of the day. I don't think anything is going to come out of it because instead of working together, it ended up just becoming this kind of messy argument.
Well, We have run out of time. I know we could talk more about this because this thing, I love talking about big messes, and this is certainly something that attracts me. But in the meanwhile, I want to thank you both for joining me.
Hey, you're welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been talking with Landline Magazine Managing Editor Jamie Jones and the magazine's Senior Editor Mark Schremer. And folks, you can read more at landline.media. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Every year, 28 million people are trafficked globally. The Your Roads, Their Freedom campaign seeks to raise awareness in the transport industry. Truck and bus drivers, be vigilant on the roads. If you see something suspicious, text 233-733 or be free.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Less weight, more freight. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Landline Now. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mark Reddick. It's time for another installment of Mafia Secrets, Advice from the Boss Man, with Bryan Martin of 4 State Trucks, home of the Chrome Shop Mafia. Once again, I'm on the line with Bryan Martin, the boss man at Joplin, Missouri's Chrome Shop Mafia. Bryan, how you doing?
You know, we're doing mighty fine down here in Joplin. What's going on up north?
You know, it's a nice day out. We'll just put it that way. It's another good day. Blue sky. It's absolutely blue sky. Our topic today is one that I think a lot of people will find interesting. And, you know, there's a lot of folks out there that like putting some chrome on the truck. And we're going to talk about the 5 best places that you can do that on your truck and why those are the best places. And I'm kind of curious what your first entry here is, Bryan.
Well, finally, after all these years, you've got a topic that I'm well qualified for. Like, this is what I do. Oh, I'm loving it. No, I could do this with one eye closed and one eye behind my back, you know?
Well, there you go.
The cool thing is, even though trucks are getting more and more aerodynamic, and let's say the chrome and stainless outer exterior accessories, the selection to fit these curvaceous convex trucks gets smaller and smaller, there's still ample places. You can put what I call like a nice splash of chrome down the front, side, and back of the truck. But whether you've got an aerodynamic Freightliner Cascadia or a square-hooded Freightliner Classic, there's a chrome or stainless bumper for almost every truck on the road, even these late models, like the new generation 579s, the new generation Kenworth T680s. A lot of really cool chrome-plated or stainless steel bumpers. And, you know, when you got the hood, of course, is painted body color. Let's just say it's red. You know, all down the side of the truck's red. And in most cases, a lot of times, you know, your front bumper, even though it's plastic from the factory, it's going to be red. It's going to be body color. And when you can put that big mirrored chrome bumper on the front, it just gives it you're just starting to kind of portray, man, I'm customizing my truck just a little bit. So I really think a front bumper, and you can get them with, you know, light holes. You can get them with vent holes, towing holes for, tow pins, tow truck. You can get it with a foothold, so you can more easily tilt your hood. So a lot of really cool options for chrome or shiny front bumpers. That's where I'd go first.
Absolutely. And of course, that's the first thing people are going to see when you're heading forward.
You bet. And every time you walk out of that truck stop, you're going to see it when you're walking up to your truck.
Well, what's your number 2 spot, Bryan?
Same way, aerodynamic or a classic square-hooded truck, there's a stainless steel sun visor for just about every make and model. You can even get a lot of them in paintable, like aluminum, and then if you want to paint it body color, if that's your thing. I mean, a lot of times that looks really, really cool, but, you know, we're talking about chrome, so I'm going to put a stainless sun visor across the top of the windshields. Obviously, almost every one of us would like to get one that drops down a little further than that factory painted plastic visor. So they're all available, and A lot of those you can trick out, with lights on the visor. If you don't have lights on top of your cab or on your cab roof, you can get them mounted to the visor. And that drop visor, we'll call it, stainless drop visor, now not only are you portraying, hey, I'm customizing my truck a little bit, there's something about that big visor that starts giving it that attitude. It starts looking a little cocky, a little gangstery with that big extended drop visor on it. So after I got done with the bumper, I'd probably move to the visor no matter what year, make, model truck I had.
And of course, I remember a couple of years back, we talked about visors and options there. And you mentioned, I can't remember what the exact term for it, but kind of the bow tie shape versus kind of the opposite of that. Is it still popular to go with those, or do they want one that's just kind of straight across?
Unless you're going for that retro, nostalgic, like vintage look, a lot of people just like that big, straight across drop visor. Sometimes it's actually called just a gangster visor. It's just heavier and longer across the bottom than the factory. And then the bow tie, straight across the bottom, V'd down on the top, that's sort of that old 1960s, 1970s, 1980s vintage look. And as of the last 18, 20 years, people kind of put a spin on that and made a reverse bow tie, which is really, really popular. I mean, if you look around in the next 30 minutes and you're running down the highway, you're going to see a truck that has a reverse bow tie, which would be straight across the top of the visor and then V'd up on the bottom side, which on the right truck, with the right styling, looks pretty nice. I like them.
Well, that brings us to the number 3 item, and I'm kind of curious because to me the bumpers and the visors are pretty obvious. Is number 3 as obvious?
It is. We're going to get down the side of the truck now, and where else would you go but your wheels? Most all of us are tandem trucks, so you kind of got six hubs and 6 sets of lug nut covers and wheel and axle treatments. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do there. These 6-piece chrome-plated plastic, I'll call them hub cover kits. Man, you see them at every dealership, every truck stop, every chrome shop. They're kind of one of the first go-tos in high-volume selling items. But you can get those with the spiked lug nut covers. You can get them with the smooth top hat style, like the Lincoln hat style, which I really like. And then you can get them with just the traditional domed lug nut covers. Same way on the axle caps. You can get them pointed, kind of to complement that spiked look. You can get them domed, or you can get them top hat. You can even get them, some companies are offering them now in flat black, which again, on the right truck can look pretty cool. But a chrome 6-piece hub cover set for all your wheels, all your axles, that's kind of like a no-brainer. We got to knock that out, and it's definitely got to be on a top 5 list.
And of course, you mentioned earlier with the visors, aluminum being one of the options there. Is aluminum a good material as an alternative to chrome on the wheels, or does it really not have the same look and feel?
Well, most of the wheels themselves nowadays and for the last decades are going to be aluminum, thick cast machined aluminum, and we just polish them out and try to put as close to a mirror finish on them as we can. It's not bad. A negative about aluminum, it's going to have to be polished depending on your environment that your truck's working in, anywhere from every 4, 5, 6 weeks to twice a year. It's always going to lose its luster over time. Stainless should hold its mirror finish almost year round, and all you'll have to do is just go to the truck wash and knock the dirt and grime off of it. So that's kind of in a very quick manner your 2 differences between aluminum versus stainless steel. We probably have a tendency to call them all chrome because people just lump that into a generic term. If it's shiny, it's chrome. But it could be chrome-plated steel, it could be stainless steel, or it could be polished aluminum.
Okay. Well, let's just go right to number 4 here, of course. What is your number 4 item?
I'd slide around to the back of the truck and do your mud flap weights, maybe mud flap hangers, and then a center panel hanging underneath the chassis there with your tail lights, backup lights, maybe a license plate or a custom license plate, but kind of putting a nice bit of chrome on the back of the truck. We've been putting flap weights on mud flaps since I was an infant, and we still do to this day. That's sort of a norm and a quick go-to. But you can get the stainless mud flap hangers. You can even get stainless steel spring-loaded lighted mud flap hangers. So you can have your tail lights up there. And then if you do a stainless rear center panel hanging under the frame, you can just do clearance lights down there, you can do backup lights down there, or you could do some additional brake lights. So a lot of great options, and these are ready-made right out of the box. You can get them with clear lens lights, red lens lights, and a host of different patterns, shapes, and sizes on your lighting. There's just a lot of options right off the shelf to put some chrome or stainless on the back end of the truck.
And of course, you're talking there. That's, I think, the truth with any of this chrome that you kind of said throughout this, which is accessorizing, to borrow a term from the ladies. It really can make a big difference how you accessorize what you're doing with chrome.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of lets you make your truck your own, and it doesn't look like the truck you park next to or back into at the truck stop. Like yours is going to have that unique, accessorized, kind of a custom flair that you came up with yourself, so to speak. So it's a lot of fun doing it, and most of the stuff we're talking about, it's expensive, but it's not like you're going to have to go to the bank and take out a loan expensive. You can budget for it, save up in a month or two, and do anything we're talking about so far.
Well, let's get on to the number 5 item here, and I'm interested to hear because you've hit all the ones that I think are obvious or I'd even kind of think of. So what is the next one on this list?
The next one's just kind of that barrage, just that overall fine accessorizing, and it's just putting that splash of chrome here, there, and yonder, not to be overdone, but maybe you want a stainless bug shield on the top of the hood there above the grill. Maybe you want the door chop. They're very popular. They make your cab kind of look lowered. You just almost, in some cases, you just tape them across the top of your doors, and it gives the cab a little bit of a lowered look. The cabin sleeper panels, even if you've got an aerodynamic truck, the stainless bars to go the full length under the cabin sleeper, with either amber lights in them, or some of them have no lights in the face, but you have the glow lights, like the cab underglow, the lights in the bottom flange on your cab and sleeper skirts. There's just, hood ornaments. There's just a lot of small accessories that you can put all the way from front to back down the side of the truck, and like a nice, tasteful placement, not to be overdone. But I think it's just finish out some of the little this and that around the exterior of the truck.
And I think the key there, you said, is nice and tasteful. This is one of those where maybe, to borrow a term, less is more.
You can get too much of a good thing. Some people want to put your truck logo emblem accents, your door handle accents, your wing vent window accents, hood center strip, chrome tape here, there, and yonder. And, sleeper vent covers, and it can get to looking a little bit tacky, in my opinion. So I kind of keep it moderate. Not less is more, but just moderate, Don't go completely overboard.
We got about a minute and a half left, Bryan, and that kind of leads me to one other thought I was having, which is there any place that people want to put chrome that you absolutely think they should not be thinking about that? What's the no point on putting chrome on a truck?
Nothing in specifically comes to mind. We talked about sun visors, and some of those sun visors can get pretty heavy. Like some of them can get up in 16, 17 inches wide, and they catch a lot of wind. So I'd kind of be a little leery of any great big sun visors. But as far as where not to put chrome on the exterior of your truck, or stainless for that matter, I can't really think of a place it's going to be detrimental. The chrome plating, chrome-plated steel is a harder finish. Like a chrome-plated steel front bumper is not going to pit or road rash as quickly as a polished stainless steel one will. So your true chrome plating, whether it's on steel or plastic, that chrome itself, it's hard. It's going to be relatively impervious to road rash and rocks for, the first 600,000 or 700,000 miles, whereas stainless is a little less forgiving. It's going to get sandblasted a little quicker. But I can't really think of a place I would say, oh gosh, what were you thinking? That's a terrible choice. I can't really think of a certain area or item on the truck that wouldn't be suitable for most logical reasons to be stainless, chrome, or polished.
Okay, well, Bryan, we're out of time, but hey, thank you for everything. I think we helped some folks out.
Hey, it was fun. We'll do it again soon.
If you have questions for Bryan Martin, you can email them to bossmanonlandlinenow@chromeshopmafia.com. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibratech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibratech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Late last month, the Supreme Court overturned something called the Chevron Doctrine, stripping some of the power that federal agencies have to make and enforce regulations. In the hours after the announcement, we spoke with Paul Torlina, OOIDA Government Affairs Counsel, for a snap reaction. But the decision is so rife with potential consequences and still producing so many questions, we thought it might be a good idea to have Paul back on. So that's what we're doing today. Paul, good to see you.
Always glad to be here.
So for a quick refresher here, the decision, as we talked about before, makes it harder for federal agencies to wield power not specifically provided to them by Congress. Is that a pretty good summary?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. And for a quick note here, too, we've been calling it the Chevron Doctrine, which is not wrong, but there's kind of a new name that people are going to start hearing with regard to this, right?
Right. The case that we're going to be talking about is called the Loper-Bright case. It is the case that the Supreme Court decided, as you said at the end of last month, that overturned the Chevron Doctrine. So for purposes of our discussion, I'm going to say Loper-Bright just because I think that's how it's going to go in the future.
We're going to slip up, though.
We're probably going to say Chevron every once in a while, and for those listening, we're talking about the same thing when we do that.
Very good. So as we talked about before here, the implications of this are wide-ranging. I want to throw a hypothetical at you here in just a moment, but I do want to kind of do a rapid-fire back and forth if we can, because I know OOIDA in particular has been getting a lot of questions about this. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a confusing situation. Anytime you deal with courts and all this, it's going to be confusing. But a lot of questions are out there. And if you're game, we'll do that here real quick.
Absolutely.
So first question we've been getting is, does this ruling by the Supreme Court mean that all the moves made by FMCSA and EPA and other agencies in the past are all of a sudden going to be overturned?
No, it specifically does not mean that. Now, it does mean that they are up to be challenged under a different standard or roadmap, whatever you want to call it, but nothing automatic has happened as a result of this Loper-Bright decision.
I know there were some people out there who maybe got a little excited or hopeful that this would mean that things like the ELD mandate were going away. That is not the case. It is here to stay.
Correct.
Just in the context of this discussion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's staying. Other things that we've seen are staying as well. However, we should mention that rules mandated by Congress could still be challenged, right, in courts of law across the United States.
Rules made by Congress are challenged all the time for constitutional reasons, but that is not a Loper-Bright or Chevron analysis or discussion. That is something more like the Commerce Clause or the Due Process Clause or more technical parts of the actual U.S. Constitution.
And those are things we see play out all the time. Those will continue playing out the way we've seen them.
I'm certain they will, yes.
Moving forward.
Yep.
Okay, so we've kind of looked to the past here. Again, pretty clear that past decisions, past moves, regulations, whatever you want to call them, are going to remain. The questions become a little more layered when we look to the future and decisions that are currently being made. a prime example of this, I think, is a speed limiter mandate. Tons of discussion about this. Obviously, FMCSA wants to move forward. That movement has been a bit slow of late. But as we put that into this context of this Loper-Bright decision, something like a speed limiter mandate, what does that mean with regard to this decision?
So just to back up a bit, we talked real quickly about ELDs, and the reason that ELDs are not open to challenge here is because Congress very specifically mandated a rule for that. They asked FMCSA to put a rule together implementing ELDs. That's why it's not able to be challenged under Loper-Bright, because Congress specifically directed it. Okay, now on to speed limiters. If FMCSA were to make a rule mandating speed limiters or implementing them, they would not be doing so with direct language mandated by Congress telling them to do so. As of right now, there is no statute out there that Congress has created to directly mandate FMCSA to create speed limiters or rules about speed limiters or implementing speed limiters in any way. So what would follow is FMCSA would be acting on their own and assuming that they have that authority from Congress, then making a rule. That is prime Loper-Bright grounds for a challenge. So what we would have there is Loper-Bright analysis now says, did you have the power from Congress? The answer is probably no. Or did you think that you had the power from Congress, and so you made this rule? Is the rule reasonable or permissible under, I guess, logic, I guess is the best way to say it. It's hard to explain permissible, but under some analysis showing how they came to it, using their expertise, how did they implement research and data and things like that. But again, that's fertile grounds for a challenge under the Loper-Bright case now. And what's going to happen in that situation with speed limiters, if they were to be mandated by FMCSA without a mandate from Congress, the analysis now that Loper-Bright has overturned the Chevron doctrine, is to say we no longer have to automatically defer. And when I say we, I mean the court does not have to automatically defer to the FMCSA anymore. The court can make its own decision using all factors in play, all facts and circumstances, all evidence, such as they did back in the 60s with, or I guess it might have been the 50s, I don't remember the date exactly, with the Brown versus Board of Education case, which we were on before and I misspoke about that and called that Marbury versus Madison. But when they did the separate but equal analysis under constitutional law back then in Brown versus Board of Education, they did exactly the same thing. So in these situations now under Loper-Bright, the court would do exactly the same thing that they would have done way back then in Brown versus Board of Education or any other case that they hear. They no longer have to say, oh, well, we're required to automatically defer to FMCSA because they made this rule and it appears to be reasonable.
What I'm hearing here is that, let's say FMCSA tomorrow or next week or whenever it is down the line here decides that they're going to move forward with a speed limiter mandate. This decision makes that road much more difficult for the agency to do that.
It does. They're going to have to cross their T's and dot their I's more carefully to make sure that their action is one that they were empowered to take and one that they reasonably took that was permissible in the event they did have the power to take it. They're going to have to be more careful.
I mean, as of right now, looking at the language, it doesn't appear that they would have that power. Again, just talking speed limiters.
Agree. As we said earlier, there is no mandate from Congress right now specifically telling them to create a rule implementing speed limiters.
So again, this creates a lot of turmoil, and I think we've kind of cleared it up pretty well here. And we don't have the answers here. We're going to have to wait and see how a lot of this plays out, obviously. The last time we spoke, and we've talked about this before as well, but you were kind of digesting the decision and what it meant. It had just happened, obviously. You've had a little bit of time now to let this all marinate, to kind of think this over. I think the jury is probably still out on whether this is good, bad, neutral, whatever. Your thoughts, though, obviously, as you've had time to think about it.
Well, I agree with you that the jury's still out, and it will be for a while. This is going to be a long-term thing to figure out exactly whether it's good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent. But I think my initial reaction shortly after the decision is that this is a slightly good thing. And the reason I say that is you've taken You've kind of taken an iron fist out of an agency's hands with this decision. Loper-Bright now puts the power in the hands of the courts to decide this rather than to just automatically defer to an agency. And the reason I say that is good is that it just puts more checks and balances in place for a court to consider all the facts and circumstances. A judge would have to follow case law precedent when making these decisions, if it exists and is on point, of course. But that's much different than the risk that you're just hoping that the agency gets it right when they make their decision. Now, there's a flip side to that certainly judges could be motivated by their own politics or views.
Sure.
An agency most certainly is going to be a politically motivated agency under the regime it operates under on whoever's in office. So that's also there, but I think that balance tips in favor of it being good when you have the judges who are subject to some checks and balances.
Complicated but important matter. Paul, thanks for your time and your expertise. We appreciate it.
You bet.
And that's our show for today. We thank you for tuning in wherever you may be, and wherever that is, drive safe and take care.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.